That's great. I think I'll bask in that applause, Karen. It's unusual to have someone hung on the O'Corey part, a perfect pronunciation of fearcraft, so I appreciate that. Who here is interested in the gamification side of tonight, and who here is interested in the sales side? So I'd say hands up if you're interested in the sales side first, and if you're interested in the gamification side second. Okay, so it's about probably, I'd say 2/3 sales first, 1/3 gamification, which is about what I was expecting. So that's good. To talk a little bit about the format, basically, I'm going to cover about probably 2/3 now on the sales side, and look at the problems and ideal best practices to sell. And then the last third we're going to do a bit of a workshop around a case study. So using a little bit of gamification to say, well, how do we deal with best practices from a sales point of view? And it's very much applied gamification, which is probably the key to sales or to pipeline check. My own background, first of all, to talk about selling is I've worked in sales for since O.J. Simpson was arrested for murder. So let's go back a long time. It just hit me that that's 20 years ago, 21 years ago, I think now. So probably not a lot of people in the room vividly remember the O.J. chase and all that. But the point is, it probably took me a lot of time to realise salespeople don't have to be idiots. That's a polite word. So I would say it's probably 5 years selling before I got any way good at it. I'm a slow learner, but I learn well when I do learn. And I was lucky enough to be given that chance. Ended up working for Salesforce.com in early 2002. When it was just starting off in Europe, and that is where I really learned selling. And fundamentally, Salesforce.com is selling to heads of sales. So you're listening to the challenges of heads of sales. They're telling you, here's the problem I have managing my sales team. Here's what we sell. Here's how we sell it. Here's how we position it. How do we make ourselves more effective at doing that? Here are our own thoughts on doing that. And how does CRM help, and how can you help us to achieve our objective? I did that for 10 years as promoted to Vice President of Sales in EMEA for Salesforce, so managing sales teams in UK, Israel, Ireland and South Africa. And learned an awful lot more about selling, again, in Salesforce and managing sales teams, and seeing different levels of performance in that time in Salesforce, different win rates, different average deal sizes, different lengths of sales, and seeing differences between different sales reps. So I've probably managed 100 different sales reps across different teams, and seeing people struggling and overcoming struggles and not overcoming those struggles. So I'm going to try and summarise what I know about selling in about 40 minutes. So ultimately, the goal of Pipeline Check is a bit of an introduction to us. We make salespeople better. We do it by increasing the effort salespeople are making, and then increasing the effectiveness of that effort to ultimately drive an increase in sales. And you can only manage opportunities when you understand them, or reps, or teams, or regions. It all depends on understanding really what's going on at each of those levels to make it more effective. We have a thing called the growth matrix, which basically looks at the input of the sales reps and the output. So we look at their ability to forecast and measure it against their actual sales performance, and we look at the effort the salespeople are putting in terms of data going into the CRM system and their interaction with their customers to improve the performance of sales reps correspondingly. So that is the different sales reps and regions making progress with their tool. So who here works in sales? First of all. 1, 2, 3, okay. So don't let that colour your view of salespeople. But we'll start, and this is going to be very interactive, by the way, so contribute freely and openly as well. Actually, there's one thing I know about Irish people, I think, we're biased against salespeople, and I include myself in that. So I remember in college, I did business and legal studies in UCD, and half the class went into law, half the class went into accounting, and I went into sales. And I remember a guy in the course saying, "Why are you going to sales for? Like, you know, you don't need a degree to do sales." And it's probably right, but it helps in terms of business sales to have a business background, business understanding. But there is definitely a cultural bias in Ireland against salespeople, or kind of low expectation, if I put it that way, of salespeople. And that is actually reflected very much in the attitudes of salespeople themselves. So a lot of salespeople have a perception of what a salesperson should be. They're usually, an awful lot of them are wrong about their own profession, and they are worse salespeople as a result of it. So who would like to define, I mean, everyone think of somebody who sold to them recently. You can close your eyes if you want to, and think of, was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience? And for everyone who has a good experience, maybe first of all, shout out what made that a good experience. What made that salesperson make you want to buy? But only actually if you bought. Persuasive, okay, excellent. What was that? He listened. Okay, excellent.
He was good looking, but
good looking. Okay, good. Go on, deeper. Pleasant manner, okay, excellent.
Connected to my needs.
Connected to your needs, okay, excellent too. Helpful, right, okay, very good too. Passionate as well, excellent. How many people here have experienced a passionate salesperson? 1, 2, 3, okay, good. And anyone else? One person who normally doesn't speak at events like this, give me one other bit of insight. Good experience still.
knowledge of my industry as well.
Knowledge of industry, okay. Excellent. And now we go to the dark side. Bad salespeople. There's usually no shortage of answers here. Pushy. What was that? Oh, bad salesperson and now very persuasive. Okay, and what was that like? What was bad about it? Cornered, okay, yeah, that's the kind of pushy side as well. Okay? Come on, get it all out.
Talks too much.
Talks too much?
No, it's all.
Interesting, the opposite of listening.
Overbearing.
Overbearing. Excellent.
No much about the back.
No knowledge of product. Okay.
Saying what he wanted, not what I wanted.
Saying what they wanted.
I recommend you to do this, and I want to.
Right, yeah. Presuming insider requirements, or whatever it would be. Excellent. Patronising. Okay, and that could be a function of having too much product knowledge as well, kind of thinking, I know all this, you don't know anything. A dangerous area. Anything else?
You focus on making a sale.
Right, yeah. Okay, excellent. And I can come across as pushy as well. Anything else?
You know, when you walk into a shop or something and they meet you at the door before you even get in the door.
Right, yeah. It's a funny one. There's a kind of a balance between making people feel welcome and then getting in their face, and also people's reaction to that, judging that. I remember the US is the perfect kind of market for it. You walk into a store in the US, clothing store, and I remember the kind of friendliest hello in a very busy shop. And I just walked in, and the guy at the door said, "Welcome to our store." And I went, "Oh, well, thank you." I wasn't used to that. So I walked in, and then my phone rang and I had to walk out. I walked out, turned around after 2 seconds, and came back in. And he goes, "Welcome to our store." He's never seen me before. I realised that's not very sincere, but it felt sincere at the time. But yeah, definitely a lot of people don't like that, what do you want to buy kind of thing as soon as you walk in. Okay, so There are a lot of methodologies, especially these would be B2B sales methodologies, a lot of other kind of consumer approaches, how to sell books, and most of them are very, very good. I'd say 90% are good. Fundamentally, what they're all trying to do is give you a framework to stop talking and listen, and to make sure you're listening to everything you can possibly listen to. And the kind of cliche in sales is you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you should use them in that proportion. And that really is about understanding requirements. That's how you are persuasive, if you understand what the person actually wants to do. And that is very hard to do when you have a lot of product knowledge. So a lot of companies will invest a ton of time and money in training the sales reps to have tons of product knowledge. Customers want that knowledge. An awful lot of that content is scripted, and it is a massive list, an encyclopedic level of knowledge about a particular product. And then when you meet somebody, 99% of people buying something don't know as much about the thing as the salesperson. But that's not actually the salesperson's journey. They're not trying to transplant all of their knowledge into a buyer's head. It's actually to listen to what is the underlying requirement and to guide the buyer along a decision-making process based on the few things that are relevant of what they know in the product. And all of these frameworks are designed to just get you to think through a lot of different elements of what somebody might be, what might be involved in making a decision for people. So understanding is the core thing. So I think we've looked at this in the interest of time, kind of a little bit about the negative side of the sales experience, but in any transaction there is a buyer and a seller, and that's what decides the price. So whenever you're kind of thinking of something as a salesperson, you have to think of it from a buyer's point of view. You cannot be the perfect salesperson without having the perfect buyer. There has to be that match. And the selling process is about bridging that gap between the two things. My evolution as a salesperson went from probably thinking originally the stereotypical view of a salesperson in Ireland, which is not a very positive one. I always wanted to have my own business. I said it's a great skill to have, to be a salesperson, to have that background and experience. And I said, I'll give it a lash, see if I can be any good at it. And loved it, was very good at it. I'm not the typical salesperson. I'm not the kind of perception people would have of a salesperson. That helped a lot. I know an awful lot of people who don't like selling, don't think of themselves as good salespeople. And I always persuade them to try and get into sales. Because people buy that there's some sort of underlying integrity or some piece of themselves they want to preserve, and that's very useful to have in sales. But my earliest understanding of a salesperson was they are pushy, nasty, hungry, only want the sale, and that's what I need to be. So I went into it very much trying to bring out that dark side of myself, continued doing that, and probably didn't have the best sales manager for ironing that side of me out early on in my career. And he actually got a saying. He said, you know, whenever he was doing something that was slightly wrong, not criminal but not good either, he would say, you know, the way I look at it, everybody has done some wrong in their lives, and I'm just getting revenge for that. And that was a little bit of his attitude. So I probably went along with that, for not, I don't mean in any way fraudulent, but kind of perception of being sneaky, and that selling is sneaky. So then eventually caught on that doesn't need to be the case. So people actually buy much more honesty and just tell it as it is, and it's so rare people respond to it. What we're going to do is look at this from a recent experience of mine, from the point of view of selling a car. And if you think of the journey of buying a car yourselves, we could do a very complex B2B example, but I just didn't pick this at the moment as something that probably most people have some basic understanding of. So, to get into the head of a buyer at the moment, if you're buying a car, what might be going through your mind when you're buying a car? Price range? Okay. Mileage? Security? Brand? Colour? What was that? Comfort. Okay. Insurance in the sense of costs, is that what it is? Yeah.
Is it damaged or not?
Is it damaged or not? Invisibly damaged, basically, something, yeah. Parking, okay. Okay, yeah. Keep going.
Space in the car.
Space, right, dear to my own heart. Engine size. Resale value. CO2 emissions, right? Okay, yeah. For tax reasons or for environmental reasons? Both. Okay. NCT, right, yeah. Has it got one, or when's it coming up? Anything else?
Does it have to do with long trips? Or
The number of trips and mileage, kind of, what do they call it, kind of,
Minus per gallon.
ownership costs or miles per gallon, yeah. Fuel efficiency, I suppose, yeah. Okay. Right, yeah, location of the seller, yeah, very true. What was that?
Previous owners.
Previous owners. Or can you just get a number of previous owners, maybe, and how long they had it, yeah. Okay. Reliability, yeah. Warranty. Excellent. Nobody mentioned finance, that's good.
Aesthetics, how it looks.
Right, yeah. So that's probably 20 things that people have thought about. 20 things. 20, I mean, like, I'd say fundamental things. Who here has recently bought a car? One? Anyone else? How many of those questions were you asked? I went to buy a car recently, still in the process of doing it, with what I thought was a lot of money, and I don't think I got asked any of those questions. So I went in knowing what car I wanted. I don't think I was asked anything at all like that. And maybe because I said, you know, I'm looking at this car, but the deal hasn't closed yet, and he knows nothing about me whatsoever, none of those things. Has no other options if you wanted to upsell me, swap me to another car, or whatever it might be. And it's all valuable insight, those kind of questions. So this is a picture of the top selling salesperson globally for car sales. And he was selling, I think, 6 cars a day, when other people were selling 6 per month on average in the US. And he was asked what made him the most successful salesperson. He very much believed not presuming the sale and not pre-qualifying. So how would you go about selling a car like this? That beautiful thing. It reminds me of my first car. What do you think? How would you go about selling something like that? It's reliable. It's been around a long time. Hasn't ever killed anyone or exploded yet.
Family.
It's a family car.
could you say it's a classic car?
The second car, I think.
Could you say it's a classic car?
A classic car would be getting there as well.
You would find out who needs a car like this.
Right, and I think that's the key thing. Like, if you try and sell a lot of people that car, right, it doesn't matter how persuasive you are, it doesn't matter how well you understand that product, it doesn't matter how many bars, what the fuel efficiency is, or whatever, anything, all of the information you have it will not make you better at selling that car to the wrong type of buyer. And the key to selling that car is to understand, is there somebody out there that might want to buy it? What are the requirements of somebody? And all of those things, like fuel efficiency, budget, capacity, etc. When somebody is approaching, if they haven't seen that car, and somebody walks in, you do not want to spend a lot of time pitching them on the benefits of the car, wherever you want to qualify them and understand, okay, what is it you're looking for in the car? And if they say capacity, you're trying to uncover what is it that's important about capacity. Maybe it's the second car, and that could deflect that. But really understand what is it the person wants. And this applies to how many people are in the startup world. Okay, good few startups. So when you're starting off selling a car, or selling a product as a startup. Like, you have flaws in your product. It's an early stage thing. It's not as bad as that, hopefully, but it's not the product you envisage it yet either. And you can try to mask that fact from people and pretend that's a Lamborghini to yourself and to people you're selling to. Ultimately, that will end in failure, and it will make you less confident as a salesperson. You're pitching that as something it's not. You have very little chance of actually persuading somebody. You're not identifying their actual requirements, and you don't have integrity, so they're not going to buy it. They're kind of, I'm hearing you saying something, but I can see it's not quite ready yet. I can see it's not fit for purpose, or it's not as broad as other products we can get in terms of functionality. So know exactly your product, even with all its flaws, and know your buyer, and then you're looking for that matching process. So this is what Joe Girard, the top-selling salesperson in the world, has said about it in terms of trying to understand will somebody buy or not. How in the world can anyone look at somebody and determine if he's going to buy? So if he was selling 6 cars a day versus 6 per month for most sales reps, and he's saying, I had no idea, worked in it for 10 years, best-selling salesperson in the US, I had no idea if that person was going to buy a car or not until I spoke to them, until I engaged them, until I understood their requirements. How could any other salesperson in any other industry say, I know this person's going to buy, I know exactly what they're going to buy, I know what we're thinking of. And he boiled it down to, I think it's a matter of showing people that you are sincerely interested in them. So that's what the goal of the selling process is. It's to understand as much as you can about the buyer and their requirements. And seen that way, it's a lot less threatening. If you see it as a genuine educational process, actually. And education being, if people are familiar with it, there is kind of 4 steps in education. You have the conscious or unconsciously ignorant, I think the only word for it, but it's unconsciously ignorant. I don't know, I'm not good at something, I'm playing along thinking I'm great at this. The next step up then is after you've fallen over a few times, you realise, now I'm consciously ignorant, as the next step of learning. The next one then is consciously competent. So you are getting good at something, but it's very slow, kind of laboured process to think about everything, like driving a car, changing gears and all the rest of it. Everything is very forced and conscient, or kind of thought through. And then finally, then you get to a stage where you're unconsciously competent, so you're not even thinking of what you're doing anymore. And when you're selling, you're trying to figure out what stage are people at. If they're buying a car or buying your product, what level of understanding have they got at the moment? Have they researched a lot? Have they looked at competitors? Have they a specific set of features they're trying to get at the moment for a particular price point? What level are they at? And then you pitch accordingly. So you're trying to maybe bring them up to another level by understanding where are they right now, what do they need to know about my product or qualify me. There's another interesting one from Joe in terms of why he got good at treating people that way, not pre-qualifying. He was at somebody's funeral, and when he came in, they handed him a mass card, or a memorial card, and he saw the kind of big crowd, and he was kind of wondering, how do you actually know how many memorial cards to get done up? He asked the undertakers, and they said, well, we did this for years, and we look at the book of condolences and how many signatures are in the book of condolences at the end of each funeral, and on average it's about 250. And Joe summarised that as, it's about every one of us, there's about 250 people we influence in our lives. And if you are taking the attitude of either mis-selling or forcing a sale, you're just pitching people without actually understanding anything about them, there's 250 other potential sales you're missing, or influence of 250 other people that you could be underestimating. And even if you're not, like if you're trying to sell that clunker on the previous screen, and you don't know anything about the buyer at the end of the process, and the best salespeople I managed on a new business sale had a 50% win rate. So, that meant 50% of the time somebody walked away and they didn't buy. And that not having an understanding of them, other potential buyers, their network too, not building rapport, cuts off all of that other potential. Which of these two people think are easier to sell? The one on the left, my left. On the left, okay, yeah. maybe it's a bit of a starter thing, but I'm not sure that other car exists yet. So that could be hard to sell. But again, if you're selling that, and there are people who will buy a concept car off the plan, so out of a creator's head. Is the consensus that the clunker, the banger, is the easier car to sell?
Yeah.
Just on the price. You've got someone who needs a bargain.
Right, yeah.
I think it depends on the buyer's expectations and budget.
Right, okay, yeah. Right.
You can sell the Mazda, the 20-year-old Mazda, to a father who has a student going to university and it's a disposable item. It's cheap. Nobody cares whether it's lost or not.
Right, yeah.
Concept car you'll sell to your top salesman.
Right, yeah. I'll kind of push back a little bit on that. I think I would kind of go along with the view they're both as hard to sell. I'll give you a particular thing. Kind of on my journey as a salesperson. The first thing I talk about salespersons is they are all nasty people. And so that was my first step in learning. Then I thought the role of a salesperson is actually to persuade people to do something. And kept that up for kind of a few years, to persuade people to do something. And that wasn't really right, because I saw a lot of people persuade kind of to do things. But I thought that it's to persuade them to do something now. And that sense of time. Like I could persuade somebody to do something in 100 years, with 100 years of effort, but actually it mightn't be worth that. So can I persuade somebody to do something now? And most commonly, people won't say, I'm not going to do that. They'll say, I'm not going to do it now. So you have to be good at overcoming that objection. Ultimately then, the actual role of a salesperson is to uncover the value of something. Right? And that's a much more refined understanding. But what is the value of this thing? To establish the value of whatever it is you're selling. And that's a process of knowing the market, going out there, finding what people have as requirements, how much of a pain that is for them, and what they would do to fix that pain. It's that ability to understand what's the pain that somebody's trying to resolve, and what is the value they put on solving that pain. Okay, there might be better cars or worse cars than that one out there, or either of those, but is that car on the right, is the supercar on the right, should that be sold for 250,000, 250 million, 25 million? And the car on the left, should that be sold for scrap for the tyres, or should it be sold for 250 euro, 2,500 euro? And the role of the salesperson is to establish what is the best right price. Not necessarily the best as in the highest, but the best price for that item now. And that's a key part of that. That decides throughput. So you're actually looking for a connection with the right type of buyer, and that's served by being honest again. So if you're advertising a supercar for sale and people turn up and they see the banger, you're not going to get that agreement. If it's the other way around, you're going to get the wrong type of people walking into your showroom and not qualifying as fast as you could, and having a lot of actual losses as a result of that. If you're advertising to the wrong type of people, bringing the wrong type of customer in, you end up having a lot of very frustrated conversations. Gamification. What we're going to do is look at a set of behaviours to encourage listening, and this is there's a format. There's a format just in terms of one of the sales methodologies in a B2B environment, and it starts with, okay, what's the ultimate goal of the organisation, and then you look at what are the problems getting in the way of the organisation achieving those goals, and then what are the solutions? And the solutions can be what the customer already thinks the solutions are, or as a salesperson you might have other bows in your arrow that might also resolve the problem. So it's really understanding the goal is the critical thing, because then you can know, okay, I have this encyclopedia of knowledge of different use cases of functions and features, but with the goal the customer has in mind, which of those are relevant? And even if the customer says, this is definitely the only feature I want, I'm only paying for this feature, and I will pay nothing more than what the lowest cost of that feature is. It's very hard to argue with that. unless you have the context of what is it you're trying to resolve. And the more you know about their goal, the more likely it is you can find something else that adds value to the customer and increases the deal size. So there's 5 steps ultimately in this process, and it's a discovery process. The first 3 are, what is the goal of the organisation? There's a kind of sub-element to that, which is, what is the personal goal of the person you're selling to? This is in a B2B context, so we've maybe 10 people involved in a purchase, and understanding what's the personal goal of the people you're dealing with, like individually. Is it to advance their career? Is it to be home by 5 o'clock? Is it to sell more personally themselves, to hit some commission thing? And now you think, what will they do with that commission money or whatever it is? And then the problems, and listing the individual problems. So what does that person see the problems are? And then asking them to validate, is that problem a problem for the organisation or a problem for you? And that's again how you're measuring the value. If they're saying it's a problem just for me, there isn't as much value as if it's a problem for more than one person or for the organisation as a whole. So understanding the extent of the problems as you're uncovering it. And the solutions part, that's the bit salespeople are good at. That's where most of their training is spent, giving them product knowledge. So the natural reaction of a salesperson when somebody approaches them is to hit the solutions box and start dictating, this is the solution, oh boy, have I got a deal for you. This is the right one, this is going to fit whatever requirement you have, even though I haven't heard your requirements yet. So salespeople, especially if they think they have identified a buyer, will just skip everything else. And if they get a perception that this person is who they had in mind to buy the thing, they jump into the solutions box, start talking, and that gets very alienating. I think there was one experience where somebody was assuming to say, oh, someone else is going to buy it, and that's very alienating to go straight to telling somebody the solution. Even if you know for sure it's what you do, you want them to articulate, this is what I want. Say total cost of ownership for a car or for a software system, people might have one element of the total cost of ownership. So they might focus on the miles per gallon versus insurance costs or depreciation costs, actually a much more hidden one. So if you get them to articulate, the most important thing to me is miles per gallon. Okay, why is miles per gallon the most important thing to you? Well, I have some money saved up, I want to spend that, but I don't want high ongoing costs. And then you're aware, okay, so it's not miles per gallon, it's maybe the insurance costs. What about depreciation? How long do you think you'll have this car? So keep exploring those things before you go either of a hybrid car or an all-electric car, and presuming that sale. The only difference from a gamification point of view, and this is to get away from the idea of gamification, it's fun. It's fun for some people, and everyone here has probably a different idea of fun as well. What gamification does is before we start dictating a game-based way of solving something, we ask, well, what are the specific behaviours or actions that you want to resolve? So there are specific things that you want people to do when you're designing the game, and these are called the actions that you want the player to perform. So organisations like Zynga, who make Farmville or Mafia Wars, they started the design of a game in a spreadsheet with a list of things they wanted people to do. And ultimately they want people to turn from free players of the thing into paid buying virtual goods within the games. So they were deciding there are these things that ultimately we want people to do. To get them to do those things, there might be some low cost or free things that we get them to do in the meantime. But understand that architecture of that list and the priority of actions that you want people to take. What are the hardest actions you want people to take? I remember hearing a long time ago now that the total spend on unicorns in online games is over $150 million. So to spend collectively or individually $150 million on unicorns, that's possibly the ultimate sales achievement. But there are lots of steps to get people to do that. And there's something else, there's some other online world where somebody spent $50,000 on the kind of premium battleship in this online game for status. So, a case study. So this is a hypothetical car dealership, and they're selling 50 cars per month. They have an average car price of 20,000 euro, and an average trading value of 10,000. 3,000 euro on average per car in margin, and they have an uplift in the margin of 1,000 euro if they get someone on a lease agreement, if somebody purchased by some sort of finance deal. And then they're currently experiencing 0% growth. Okay. And I'll just talk a bit about that might be a typical list of somebody could be approaching Salesforce.com even, saying this is our organization. It takes a while to get people to actually give you that much information about their business. So typically somebody walking in looking for anything to fix that problem, if they perceive a problem, is they might walk in and say, we're looking for a CRM system. Why are you looking for a CRM system? To keep the names of all our contacts. And nothing there in the list is very obviously going to fix those problems or to address any of those concerns. So getting people to open up and say, well, you know, this is pretty sensitive information about your business. Tell me all of these things. It takes a bit of skill and rapport. How do you get people to open up? If people see that you're listening, they will talk more. Right? That's quite bizarre how strong that force is. They will remember that they bought some time in their day to think when they spoke to you last. Right? That unlike all of the other salespeople, this person actually asked me some questions and got me thinking. It's the most valuable thing you can do as a salesperson, let people articulate their problem. Remember those things yet. So currently at the dealership, it's quite successful, 50 cars per month, averaging 20k, trading is 10, margins 3,000, they can do some sort of lease agreement, and then 0% growth in margin. So we have to think hypothetically. If I was selling to you now, I would be asking, what's the goal of your dealership? So you get into the role of, you're the owner of this dealership. And was anyone doing the numbers there actually, in terms of what that means? If you were the owner of that dealership, what would you expect to be driving? So 20,000 by 50 per month, that's a lot of revenue. It's not even a bad amount of margin, 150,000 per month in margin, after you've paid all your salespeople. What kind of questions would you ask the owner of that? So whatever you think you're going to sell, and it doesn't actually matter at the moment because you're just trying to understand the owner of this dealership. But what kind of things would you want to know if you were to sell them anything?
Who's your best and worst seller of your team?
Okay, best and worst salespeople. Okay, anything else?
Where's the pain and how can we resolve it?
Okay. Ultimately, that's exactly what you want, and the more open the question, the better you can. The more they'll talk as well. Like so, if you leave high level or at least open, you might get them to talk a bit more about something. Whereas if you ask who's your best and worst, it is good insight, and it could get them to open up a bit more as well. But you can end up with a very short answer to that. It's Tom and Jane. But, oh, right, yeah, exactly. You're following up the why. So, okay, any other questions?
What's the goal? Like, where do you want to be?
Right, yeah, that's the critical thing for me actually as well. Is that person might be extremely happy with their dealership. So you coming in to sell something will have no effect. Right? Somebody has to want some sort of change if you're to sell. So, and the bigger that change is, the more value you potentially can have to them. And a lot of people in that position will be quite complacent to know what they're doing. So if you're selling, understand, they might say, oh, I do not want to take any more risk. I don't want everyone in the organisation is happy. I have a happy sales team. They've all been here 10 years. We have a system that works, and I get to golf 8 hours a day. So thank you for whatever. It's going to double my revenue, but I don't want it. And I've had that.
He's golfing 10 hours a day. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. So it's really is understanding the personal need and the underlying business. Because it might sound like a no-brainer to the rest of us. If you could double that, wouldn't that be great? But maybe that's not the personal need. So if you remember, the core of selling is getting somebody to do something now rather than in 100 years' time. What I would always do for a goal like that, when you're trying to understand a business goal, is put a time limit to it. So if somebody says, I want to increase revenue by 25%, by when? Right? And that's how you will overcome that objection of them saying, we're going to delay this decision for a while, or we don't budget this year, we're going to do it next year. It's only when you understand what is the time frame to their goal. And a lot of sales managers, just for one example, might be thinking a month ahead as long-term thinking, whereas owners might be thinking a year ahead as long-term thinking. So you want to understand what's their time frame. Do you need to impact something immediately, or is it something more strategic that they're looking for? If I'm looking to achieve a 25% increase in revenue with that kind of organisation, what would you say would be the biggest challenges?
You need to analyse each individual salesman on the forecourt. You need to know how many sales he's doing.
Right, yeah.
And some of the guys that are there a long time are well able to kid you, so you need to take a second look at where they're selling the trade in this case they're not in a multi or a garage for a kickback.
Right, this sounds like voice of experience.
And in order to increase the sales, you have to decide, are you going to hire any extra salespeople, or are you going to incentivize what you have?
Right, yeah.
And if you need to hire somebody else, you need to get revenue to pay them, so you need to move your trade-ins off the forecourt quicker. And you could also go to the finance company. If you're going to double up the sales, you need an uplift on their kickback.
Right, yeah. You sound like a CFO for a dealership.
That's a guess.
Yeah, perfect. That skill of just guessing, right? It's something actors have as well. Like get into the role of the character. Like it's what actors say most of the time. Is, can you get into the role of something like that quickly? And any other problems people would see? What were you speculating on in terms of the best performing salesperson, the worst performing salesperson? What do you think could be done to increase revenue, if you had to guess?
Push what the top person is doing and remove it.
Right, yeah, learning across things. And that actually is just one thing with selling and gamification is salespeople are naturally very competitive, and you probably get more out of the team by transferring knowledge and getting people to say, well, this is what works for me. If you can encourage that you're definitely onto something. So I'd say for our sales team, let's say that the biggest obstacles that we've identified are not shifting the trade-ins and not sharing knowledge of the sales team, and the finance one maybe as well, in terms of not adding in finance enough times. So if we think of the actions that we're trying to drive then, so what behaviours do we want to change in the sales organisation to increase revenue by 25% by December?
Teamwork, sharing the techniques that are working.
Right, yeah. So getting the top salespeople to mentor or even just articulate what's working for them.
As a team, not as an individual salesperson.
Right, okay. I'm just saying, something can be fixed with salespeople's behaviours. Right, what kind of things would you do?
Salespeople's behaviours, they have to make a more careful list of who's likely to trade in. Anything they have sold within the last 2 to 3 years, they have to get out that customer database, see did they sell a new car to them again. If they didn't, get a hold of them.
Right, so this is getting people to have a propensity to finance basically in the database.
Somebody they've sold a car to, like 2 years ago, that the time before didn't change the car for 3 years. Bring them up and say, right, bit of finance here, good deal on it in a minute. If you come in, we'll give you a new car now in 2 years. I'll take care of the finance.
Think of it now as a game-based way of solving those things. So encouraging salespeople to go back into the CRM system, outbounding to existing customers, getting cars off the lot within a set period. So now I want people to think of games. Has anyone actually ever played Pong? Still has some fans. And this thing, so this is League of Legends. Millions of people play it online simultaneously, and massive psychology behind that. So people will have to probably span their level of knowledge between the Pong players and the League of Legends players. Is there anything in those games, or any game you've played, that you think, if I bought this dealership and wanted to solve those problems, is there any element of these games that I can bring into the dealership environment? Ranking systems and competitiveness, yeah, definitely. That's one of the first things, is scoring things, right? Any game has a scoring system. And one of the most powerful game mechanics, or in fact fundamental game mechanics in any game, is having some sort of rule or some sort of scoring system. So if you think of the behaviours we're trying to do, which is get a car off the lot, if we take a trade and get it out of here fast, attach more finance deals. What we're doing here is designing a scoring system, and it's important to articulate that. Exactly what are the actions that you want to score? And it's important, if you want to drive those specific behaviours, that you say, this is the scoring system. And sales tends to focus on the actual commission, so that's a kind of an inbuilt scoring system, that if you sell this, you will get X% for selling this. But understanding what are the behaviours, the actions that need to happen for a salesperson to achieve that commission. And that's what you're doing with gamification. You're scoring the behaviours that get somebody to a place, rather than just commission incentive on the actual sale itself. Anything else? Competitiveness would be the leaderboard part. Any less obvious game mechanics in Pong, for example? One of the dynamics of Pong actually is head-to-head, right? And that's unlike League of Legends. Even League of Legends has millions of people online playing simultaneously, but they extract a team of 10, or actually 2 teams of 5. So they know that actually what makes people competitive. If you have a dealership with lots of people, and in fact if you have even 10 people in the dealership, the top performing salesperson is highly motivated by a leaderboard. The bottom is probably highly motivated, but the people in the middle go to lunch with their friends, they're happy enough in the middle somewhere. Whereas if you actually look at it, okay, well, can they be improving relative to their peer, somebody that started at the same time as them? And that head-to-head element can actually be more compelling for people than saying, well, you're in the middle of the leaderboard, you know, you should get to the top, but I know maybe they can't. And that could be used, you can apply that to people on any of the things. So if they're not, you know, if there are 2 people underperforming in trade-ins, you start looking at designing the game that, okay, well, the 2 at the bottom are competing now for getting more trade and shifted fast or whatever it is.
You could also say that that creates a kind of stressful environment when you bring competition and scoreboards and things like that into workplace.
Yep.
I'm just playing that.
No, absolutely no. I agree, and I've seen it over-competitive in some organisations, and even kind of just literally firing the bottom 10% and just churning through the bottom 10% in an organisation. Ultimately, though, the organisation success makes it less successful, or more or less stressful. Right? So if the organisation is doing well, it opens up opportunities for people and gives people more time. Actually, like when you're onboarding people, if the organisation is growing fast, profitable, etc., you get more time to train and onboard new people. So it's about, like, what actually is important there is your architecting, and the definition of a good sales environment or good gamification is that it's not too hard, not too easy. And that's what you're trying to do with that thing. You're saying, I don't expect you to be better than the best performing salesperson, but here is somebody that's doing about the same as you at the moment. You know, learn from each other and boost each other's rankings even, if you want to approach it that way. So this is a thing, I'll make the video available through Entanon as well, but this is a list of different game mechanics, the most influential game mechanics rather than the most widely accepted game mechanics, but worth having a look at those. And ultimately we're designing the games, or motivating salespeople, thinking about how do we do that. You have to actually start with the people, and understanding the people and what's driving them and their performance. So this is a framework that was given by a guy called Bartle just for game design. One dimension is acting and interacting, so they're action focused, or they're focused on interacting with things. And then on the other kind of social spectrum is more that they are focused on players, or they're focused on the world that they inhabit. And that's used to design many of these massive online multiplayer games. Also has applicability for understanding salespeople. I prefer to break it down as probably more memorable. I think of the personality types as diamonds, hearts, spades and clubs. The diamonds are seeking recognition and status and things, and they're looking to be top of the leaderboard, win the holiday, win the car, whatever it might be. The hearts are more social gamers, and social gamers outnumber competitive gamers 2 to 1. It probably is true about life in general. Highly competitive people versus social people go in a racing 2 to 1. And the hearts are basically people looking for a sense of community, belonging, working in teams. The spades are analytical types, so they want knowledge for the sake of knowledge. They want to know more about a world or know more about the product or whatever it might be that they're buying. And then the clubs are typically beat 'em up players. They want to club people over the head or have more control over their environment. And we use it in designing game mechanics. I think if you have a team of salespeople, 10 salespeople, you're going to get slightly more of the killers or the highly competitive people in that environment, but they will have different elements of these things. And understanding what buttons can you push. So you can say, be at the top of the leaderboard, and you will get the car or whatever it might be. But you're actually trying to understand, are there more elements to their personality? Are there ways you can encourage actually some of the kind of social side of it? Encourage them to share some of their knowledge. Even design that maybe getting to the top of the leaderboard isn't just selling more cars. It's, are you onboarding new sales reps? Can you mentor a new sales rep? And can you get that sales rep to be on the average of the organization or get them above a certain level of attainment? So think, what are the different motivators that you might have as a person? And how can you design incentives and use game-based techniques to drive a specific behaviour for those player types? They also have relevance for when you're selling to people. So if somebody's coming to buy a car or whatever product you have, are they coming at you with, deep functional knowledge, just the kind of explorer type people? So they already have encyclopedic knowledge about your product and all of your competitors, and you're trying to sell to them in some different way. Socializers, I'm buying because my friend is bought here, bought before, whatever. Killers, maybe just want to negotiate with you and get the better deal at all costs. And how do you make them feel they've got the best deal? And then achievers, it's about status and how much you push that for people. There's optional extras or whatever. So ultimately, and I won't spend long on this, but the goal then is to start measuring those behaviours and looking at, this is if you're managing a sales team, what are the things, the behaviours that need to happen, the things that the rep needs to do to achieve their result. And that's something as simple as kind of dialed for dollars. This kind of notion is if you want to make a sale for 10k or whatever, there are a certain number of calls you have to make, a certain number of no's that you have to hear to make that sale. And thinking of each no as a positive and incentivizing people to get more no's is a way of overcoming that hard part of selling, which is the negative aspect of getting rejected. But then you plan that out. Okay, what is the number of no's that you would expect somebody to get to a yes on? How long would that spell go? And within the game design environment, what are the kind of actions that you would expect? So how many times do you expect them to take a trade in for the company? What would the time limit be, or your expectation for getting rid of that? And designing the win conditions for each step of the way, rather than your sales at the end of the year being the decider for you, is really important. So you're motivating people on a step-by-step basis to get to their number. Okay. So in game design, it's called scoring and the game implementation stuff. Any questions on that?
Yeah, just on the very first thing with this, sorry, if I can say, how do you start a conversation with a potential customer to get them to open up, like that, so that you're listening? What would you actually?
Yeah, it's probably in terms of the sales methodologies, there's a lot of different questions at getting people to open up. Probably the most important thing is a level of authenticity. The first thing I would always do is try and get a little bit of a laugh at the start of things, so people feel like it's more relaxed. And also, even throwing people a little bit, which is just asking about them. Actually, just being a listener for a salesperson is the most likely thing to get people to open up a bit. And somebody here mentioned that for their start was a major difficulty, and especially with marketing noise. You're giving fixed messages to people maybe through marketing, but then when you engage directly with somebody, how do you get them to open up versus giving them the marketing spiel that could go on for days. You want them to open up by getting to listening as quickly as possible.
So really say to them, I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean, my ultimate threat for people was if they said, just tell me about the product, which is the worst thing you can do as a salesperson. I was, oh, really? Well, I can start talking about the product now and go on for 24 hours for 7 days. Would you like me to do that? And invariably I got to, no, that'd be fine. So maybe if you tell me a bit about your requirement, right? And then I don't have to go on for 7 days.
Yeah.
So it's definitely have a way of showing that you're genuinely listening to people and you genuinely want to understand things. And then the transition to when you are selling, you better make sure you use what they told you when you start talking about your product. So if you're going more than 3 sentences without relating it back to something they have told you, you're showing you haven't been listening. So it's, you know, if you do the big discovery thing about the car, they say, well, capacity is a huge thing to me. You better return to capacity within 3 sentences of talking about that car, and it'll actually get them to open up more as well. So the fact that they'll be looking to see, are you taking in anything of what they're saying, and it'll make them open up a little bit more. Any other questions? You'll be glad to hear there are no more questions. For me, sales and CRM is something I could talk about forever. I know there's a lot of interest in the selling side tonight as well, and I'm in the startup business myself, so I'm particularly interested in helping startups with their sales thing. So if anyone wants to continue the dialogue, if you email CEO@pipelinecheck.com, you'll get me.